I'll be honest, this story still makes my stomach turn, because the first time my fiancé asked me for money, I was standing outside a medical tent in full body armor, with dust in my mouth, sweat under my helmet, and another soldier's blood drying on the sleeve of my uniform. I had been deployed for 3 months by then, 3 long months of broken sleep, bad coffee, sand in everything I owned, and FaceTime calls that kept dropping right when I needed to hear a familiar voice most. His name was Ryan, and back home in North Carolina, he was supposed to be planning our wedding. At least, that was what I believed. I was 36, a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army, and I had spent most of my adult life being the woman everyone trusted to stay calm when everything fell apart. I could pack a wound, call in help, comfort a scared 19-year-old private, and keep moving through the kind of days people back home could not really imagine. But somehow, when it came to Ryan, I ignored every warning sign. The first message came right after midnight my time, when I had finally sat down on a folding chair outside our sleeping area, too tired to take my boots off, too wired to close my eyes. "Baby, I hate asking this while you're over there," he wrote, "but my truck needs work, and I can't get to job sites without it." I stared at the screen for a few seconds, not because the request shocked me, but because of the timing. He knew my days were unpredictable. He knew I had just come off a rough shift, and he knew I had been saving every extra dollar from that deployment for our wedding, a small house, and the kind of quiet life I had been promising myself for years. Still, I sent him $800. I told myself that was what partners did. 2 days later, he needed another $400 for insurance, then $600 for a last-minute wedding deposit, then $300 because his debit card had been compromised, and every single time, he wrapped the request in just enough affection to make me feel guilty for hesitating. He would start with, "I miss you so much," then slide into the problem, then finish with, "I don't want you worrying about me while you're in danger." That last line always worked. Because when you are thousands of miles from home, surrounded by alarms, briefings, and people who pretend fear is not sitting right beside them, the thought of your life back home falling apart becomes its own kind of battlefield. So I paid. I paid while eating cold eggs from a paper tray. I paid while sitting on an ammo crate with my phone balanced on my knee. I paid after 12-hour shifts, when my hands smelled like antiseptic and metal, and my heart was too tired to argue with the man I planned to marry. Then Ryan started getting irritated when I asked questions. Not angry in a loud way, not at first, but wounded, offended, like my doubts were proof that deployment had changed me into someone cruel. "You think I'd lie to you while you're overseas?" he asked one night, his voice low and shaky through the phone. I remember closing my eyes, because behind him I could hear music, laughter, and the unmistakable clink of bottles. He said he was at home. He said the noise was from the TV. I wanted to believe him so badly that I accepted an answer my own ears did not trust. By the end of the 3rd month, I had sent him almost $6,000. That number still embarrasses me, because I was not naive in the rest of my life. I had briefed younger soldiers on scams, warned them about rushed marriages, told them not to sign papers or share accounts with people who only loved them when money was involved. And there I was, doing the exact thing I told them not to do. The shift in him happened slowly, then all at once. His messages became shorter. His calls became inconvenient. He stopped asking about my day, stopped asking if I had eaten, stopped saying he was proud of me, and began treating my paycheck like it was a shared resource he could access whenever his life felt uncomfortable. One Sunday morning, after a convoy had been delayed and everyone was tense, I got a message from him that made my chest tighten before I even opened it. "Baby, I need you to send me $2,500 today." No explanation. No apology. Just the number. I stepped away from the others, leaned against a concrete barrier, and typed for what. The little typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then he sent, "It's complicated, and I don't want to stress you out." That sentence did something to me. Maybe because I had heard it too many times, or maybe because stress was already my daily weather, but for the first time, I did not send the money right away. I asked again. "For what, Ryan?" This time he called. His face looked strange on the screen, too close to the camera, eyes darting like someone was standing just outside the frame. He told me he had fallen behind on the rent, which made no sense, because the house was mine, bought before I met him, and he only paid utilities while I was gone. Then he said the truck payment was late, though he had told me that truck was already paid off. Then, when I stayed quiet, he lowered his voice and said something that made my skin go cold. "Listen, Emily, you don't understand what can happen when people are desperate." I heard that sentence twice in my head before I answered. "What people?" He swallowed, glanced away, and smiled like he had just realized he had said too much. "Nobody," he said. "Forget it." But I could not forget it. That night, I checked my bank account, then my credit card app, then the wedding savings account I had barely touched since deploying. The first two looked normal. The third one did not. $2,000 had been transferred out 3 days earlier, using a login from North Carolina. I sat there on my cot, surrounded by sleeping soldiers and the low hum of generators, staring at the screen until the numbers blurred. Ryan knew the password. Of course he did. I had given it to him before I left, because he said he might need to pay the florist, the photographer, or the venue if I was unreachable. My hands started shaking, not from fear of rockets, not from exhaustion, but from the sick realization that the danger I had missed was not outside the wire. It was living in my house. I messaged him one line. "Did you take money from the wedding account?" He did not answer. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then my phone buzzed, but it was not Ryan. It was a motion alert from the security camera on my front porch. I opened it, expecting to see a delivery driver, maybe a neighbor, maybe Ryan coming home late with another lie ready in his mouth. Instead, I saw my fiancé standing under the porch light, laughing softly, one arm around a pregnant woman I had never seen before. And in his other hand, he was carrying a brand new crib box into my house. I did not breathe for a few seconds. Not in the dramatic way people say it when they mean they were shocked, but in the real way, the way your body forgets its own job because your mind is trying to understand something it was never prepared to see. Ryan was on my porch at my house, carrying a crib. And the woman beside him was pregnant enough that there was no hiding it, no misunderstanding it, no excuse he could build fast enough to cover what my camera had already shown me. I watched the clip again. Then again. The porch light flickered over his face, and he looked relaxed, almost happy, like he belonged in that moment more than he had ever belonged on any call with me. She leaned against him as he fumbled with the front door, using the key I had left him, the key I had trusted him with, the key to the home I was risking my life to protect from thousands of miles away. My hands felt numb around the phone. Around me, the tent was quiet, except for the generator outside and someone coughing in their sleep, and somehow that made it worse, because my whole life was cracking open in silence while everyone else kept breathing normally. I wanted to call him right then. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand her name, demand the truth, demand to know how long he had been using my money to build a nursery in my own house for another woman's baby. But something inside me went very still. It was the same stillness I felt during incoming alarms, when panic had no use and movement had to be clean, sharp, and controlled. So I did not call him. I saved the clip. Then I opened the camera history and started scrolling. At first, I told myself I was looking for answers. But the truth was, I was looking for a version of reality less humiliating than the one sitting in front of me. There was none. 2 weeks earlier, she had walked into my house carrying grocery bags. 10 days earlier, Ryan had kissed her in the driveway. 4 days earlier, they had stood on my porch with a man from a furniture delivery company, signing for boxes I had not ordered. Every clip felt like a small, quiet explosion. And the worst part was not even that he had cheated. It was how normal they looked. They moved through my home like I was the guest, like my uniforms hanging in the closet, my coffee mug by the sink, my framed photo with my mother in the hallway, all belonged to some woman who had disappeared long enough for them to start living over her. I opened my banking app again and forced myself to look closer. The transfers were not random anymore. They had a pattern. 200 here, 600 there, 1,000 labeled wedding vendor, but sent to an account I did not recognize. Then another payment to a baby store. another one to a moving company, another one to a medical clinic. I felt my throat tighten so hard that swallowing hurt. The money I had saved for our wedding was not going to our future. It was going to his. Just not with me. For the first time in 3 months, I was grateful for the distance, because if I had been home, I am not sure I would have stayed calm. I messaged my best friend, Lauren, who lived 20 minutes from my house and had a spare key for emergencies. I sent her the clip with no explanation at first, because I did not know how to explain something that still felt unreal. She replied almost instantly, "Emily, who is that woman?" I stared at the words until anger finally pushed through the shock. "I don't know, but she's in my house." Lauren called me, and when I answered, she did not say hello. She said, "Do you want me to go over there?" For 1 second, the answer was yes. I wanted someone to burst through the door and drag the truth into the light. But then I looked around at the dim tent, at my boots under the cot, at my body armor hanging beside me, and I understood something that made me feel even colder. Ryan knew I could not come home. That was the whole point. He had not done this because he thought I was stupid. He had done it because he knew I was deployed, isolated, exhausted, and limited. He knew I could not stand on my own porch. He knew I could not walk into my own bedroom. He knew every confrontation would happen through a screen, where he could cry, lie, disconnect, and make me feel cruel for asking questions while serving overseas. I told Lauren not to go yet. "Just stay ready," I said, and my voice sounded nothing like me. Then I called my bank. The connection kept cutting in and out, and I had to repeat my name, my security answers, my location, and my request with a patience I did not feel. I froze the wedding savings account. I changed every password I could remember. I removed Ryan from every emergency access I had given him. And then, because humiliation is never finished when you think it is, the bank representative asked me if I recognized a pending request for a personal loan. A personal loan for $15,000. Submitted in my name, using my social security number, with my house listed as the address. For a moment, the whole tent seemed to tilt. I asked her to repeat it because part of me needed the words to be wrong. They were not. The application had been submitted the day before. The contact email was not mine. The phone number was not mine. But the signature looked enough like mine that someone had clearly tried to copy it from documents Ryan had access to in my home office. That was the moment I whispered, almost without meaning to, "This is insane." Not loud, not dramatic. Just a broken little sentence in the dark. Because cheating was one kind of betrayal. Stealing was another. But using my identity while I was deployed, while I was standing in a war zone wearing the flag he loved to brag about, was something so cruel that my mind could barely touch the edges of it. And then Ryan finally texted back. Not an apology. Not an explanation. Just one sentence. "Before you overreact, you need to understand that she has nowhere else to go." I stared at Ryan's message until the screen dimmed in my hand. "Before you overreact, you need to understand that she has nowhere else to go." That was what he chose to say. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I can explain." Not even, "I know how this looks." He wrote it like I was being unreasonable, like finding another woman pregnant in my house, surrounded by baby furniture paid for with my money, was some small misunderstanding that required compassion from me. For a few seconds, I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because my mind had reached that strange place where pain becomes too sharp to process, so your body tries to turn it into something else. I typed 3 different replies and deleted all of them. Then I wrote, "Who is she?" The message delivered. No answer. I watched the tiny line under my text, waiting for it to change, waiting for those little typing bubbles, waiting for him to finally give me one sentence that did not insult my intelligence. Nothing came. Outside, someone yelled near the motor pool, and a vehicle started up with a rough metallic growl. Inside the tent, everyone kept sleeping, but I felt completely exposed, like my private humiliation had somehow filled the whole room. A few minutes later, he called. I did not answer right away. I let it ring because I needed one more moment where he did not get immediate access to me. One more moment where I remembered that picking up was a choice, not a duty. When I finally accepted the call, His face filled the screen in the harsh yellow light of my kitchen. My kitchen. Behind him, I could see the edge of my refrigerator, the magnet from our trip to Charleston, and a pink baby bottle drying upside down beside my coffee maker. That tiny bottle broke something in me. Ryan looked tired, annoyed, and strangely calm. Emily, he said, dragging out my name like I was the problem. Please don't turn this into something ugly. I was sitting on a cot in a deployment tent, wearing a tan t-shirt and sweatpants, with dust in my hair and a rifle locked nearby, and he was standing in the house I paid for, telling me not to make things ugly. Who is she? I asked again. He rubbed his forehead and looked off to the side. Her name is Madison. I waited. He swallowed. She's going through a hard time. That was it. That was the explanation he thought I deserved. A hard time. I felt my heart beating in my neck, slow and heavy, and I made myself keep my voice low because the calmer I sounded, the less room he had to call me unstable. How pregnant is she? His mouth tightened. Emily, don't do that. How pregnant is she? He looked away again, and that was when I heard her voice from somewhere behind him. Ryan, is that her? Her. Not Emily. Not your fiancé. Not the woman whose house I'm standing in. Just her. Ryan turned slightly, putting his body between the camera and the room, but I saw enough. I saw a pale blue blanket on my couch, a stack of diapers beside my living room lamp, and 2 framed photos missing from the bookshelf. Mine were gone. Hers were there. She's 7 months, he finally said. 7 months. I had been deployed for 3. Before that, I had spent 6 weeks preparing to leave, sleeping beside him, kissing him goodbye at the airport, crying into his jacket because I thought distance would be the hardest part of our engagement. 7 months meant this was not some lonely mistake after I left. 7 months meant he had stood in front of my mother at our engagement party, held my hand, smiled for photos, and already knew another woman was carrying his child. The room seemed to narrow around me. I wanted to ask if it was his baby, but the answer was already standing in his face, in the way he protected her from my anger, in the way he said her name gently while he had been treating mine like an inconvenience. Is the baby yours? I asked anyway. He closed his eyes. Biologically, yes. Biologically. As if one cold word could make it smaller. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he did what manipulative people do when truth finally corners them. He reached for my guilt. She was scared, he said. Her family cut her off, and I couldn't just throw her on the street while you were gone. While I was gone. That phrase landed like a slap, because he said it as though my deployment had created the opportunity, not his lies, not his cheating, not his decision to turn my home into a shelter for the life he built behind my back. I took a slow breath. Did you apply for a loan in my name? His face changed. It was quick, barely a flicker, but I saw it. The softness disappeared. His eyes sharpened. What loan? The $15,000 loan, Ryan. He leaned closer to the camera, and for the first time, his voice dropped into something colder. You need to calm down before you start accusing me of crimes. That sentence told me more than a confession would have. Because innocent people usually panic when falsely accused. Ryan sounded prepared. He sounded like he had already rehearsed the part where I became the unstable military fiancé, stressed from deployment, imagining things, lashing out from overseas. And I suddenly understood why he had been pushing for money so urgently. It was not just repairs or rent or some desperate pregnant woman. He had a plan. He was trying to drain what he could before I noticed, then bury me under enough confusion that I would spend months proving what he had done. I asked him to leave my house. He actually smiled. Not a warm smile. A small, cruel one. Emily, he said, you're not even in the country. I felt every word settle between us. Then he added, and Madison has rights too. She's been staying here. I did not know if that was true. I did not know what legal mess he had dragged into my home. But I knew he had said it to scare me, and for 1 second, it worked. My chest tightened, because being deployed makes you feel powerful in some ways and completely powerless in others. You can follow orders, carry weight, stand steady under pressure, but you cannot physically protect your own front door from a man who knows exactly where you keep every document. I ended the call without warning. Then I sat there in the dark, shaking, with one terrible thought repeating in my head. He was not begging anymore. He was threatening me. I messaged Lauren again and told her everything. This time, she did not offer to go over alone. She wrote, "Emily, I'm calling my brother." Her brother was a sheriff's deputy in the next county. Before I could respond, another security alert appeared. Front porch motion. I opened the camera feed with my pulse hammering in my ears. Ryan was outside again, but this time he was not carrying baby furniture. He was carrying a cardboard box from my home office. And when he stepped under the porch light, I saw my birth certificate sitting right on top. When I saw my birth certificate sitting on top of that cardboard box, something inside me stopped shaking and went completely cold. Not calm, exactly. Colder than calm. The kind of stillness that comes when your body understands danger before your heart has finished grieving. Ryan stood on my porch under that weak yellow light, wearing the gray hoodie I had bought him for Christmas, holding a box filled with pieces of my life, like they were junk from a garage cleanout. My birth certificate was on top. Under it, I saw a blue folder I recognized immediately. My social security card. My old tax records. A copy of my deployment orders. And then, as he shifted the box against his hip, I saw the corner of a sealed envelope from my mortgage company. For one terrible second, I could not even blink. Because this was no longer about cheating. This was not even just about stolen money. Ryan was not taking documents because he panicked. He was taking them because he needed them for something. I saved the clip, backed it up, and sent it to Lauren with one message. "He's taking my identity documents." She called immediately, but I could not answer. I was already walking out of the tent, phone in my hand, boots unlaced, heart beating so hard that it felt like it was hitting my ribs from the inside. Outside, the night air was dry and sharp, and the base lights made everything look washed out and unreal. A sergeant from another unit passed me and nodded, but I barely saw him. All I could think was that my life back home was being packed into a cardboard box while I stood on the other side of the world, unable to reach through the screen and stop it. I called my bank again, then the credit bureaus, then my commander. That last call nearly broke me because saying the words out loud made them heavier. My fiancé may be committing identity theft while I'm deployed. There was a pause on the other end. Not judgment, not disbelief, just the brief silence of someone professional enough to understand how bad that sentence really was. My commander told me to document everything, contact JAG as soon as their office opened, and not engage with Ryan beyond written messages. "Do not warn him further," she said. "Let the evidence speak." That was good advice. It was also almost impossible. Because every part of me wanted to call him and scream until the version of him I loved came back, until he remembered the man who cried at the airport, who promised my mother he would take care of my house, who kissed my forehead and said, "Come home to me." But that man was gone. Or worse, maybe he had never really existed. Around 0300, Lauren texted that her brother had run a basic check on the house from public records. I opened her message with my thumb trembling. "Emily, I need you to sit down before you read this." I did not sit. I could not. The next message came through in pieces, like she could barely type it. "There is a quitclaim deed draft filed in your county's online system. It has not been finalized yet, but your name is on it, and Ryan's name is listed as the person receiving interest in the property." I read it once, then again, then a third time slower. A quitclaim deed. My house. The one I bought before him, the one my father helped me paint the summer before he died, the one with my mother's lemon tree in the backyard, the one I had been paying for while sleeping on a cot in a combat zone. Ryan was trying to put himself on the deed. Not someday. Not after marriage. Now, while I was deployed. My knees felt weak, and I reached for the side of a concrete barrier to steady myself. There are moments in life when betrayal becomes so big that sadness cannot hold it anymore. It turns into clarity. Sharp, ugly clarity. I finally understood the money requests, the pressure, the guilt, the loan application, the missing documents, the pregnant woman in my house. Ryan was not spiraling. He was building an exit route. And he was using my deployment as cover. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, it was from Ryan. Baby, please don't make this a legal thing. You know I love you. I almost threw the phone. He had not called me baby when asking how I was sleeping. He had not called me baby when I missed Christmas. He had not called me baby when I sent money after money, trusting him with the future I thought we were building together. But now that evidence existed, now that my friend knew, now that my accounts were frozen, he suddenly remembered softness. I typed back one sentence. Return every document you took from my office. He replied immediately. You're confused. I was organizing things for you. That lie was so small, so lazy, that it frightened me more than an elaborate one would have. He did not think he needed to convince me. He only needed to create enough confusion for later. Then he sent another message. And Madison is scared because you're acting unstable. There it was. The next move. I could almost see the shape of his plan in the dark. Make me emotional. Make me look irrational. Make the deployed fiancé seem traumatized, angry, paranoid, maybe dangerous, while he played the overwhelmed man caring for a pregnant woman in a house he claimed he had some right to occupy. My phone rang again. This time, it was a number I did not recognize from North Carolina. I answered because something told me to. A woman's voice came through, quiet and shaky. Is this Emily? I stepped farther away from the lights. Yes. She breathed like she had been crying. My name is Madison, she said. Ryan told me you were his ex-wife. For a moment, the whole base went silent around me. Even the generators seemed to fade. I closed my eyes because the ground under this nightmare had just shifted again. I'm not his ex-wife, I said slowly. I'm his fiancé. There was a broken sound on the other end. Then Madison whispered the sentence that made the blood drain from my face. He said the house was already in both your names and that you agreed to let him sell it before the baby came. I could not speak. She kept going, faster now, like fear had finally opened the door. Emily, there's a realtor coming tomorrow morning. He told me not to tell you. He said you were deployed, unstable, and signing everything remotely. My hand tightened around the phone. Then she said one last thing, so quietly I almost missed it. And tonight, he asked me to practice signing your name. For a few seconds, I could only hear Madison breathing on the line. She had just told me that Ryan asked her to practice signing my name, and the words hung between us like smoke after an explosion, ugly and impossible to take back. I leaned against the concrete barrier outside the tent, staring at nothing, while my phone pressed hot against my ear, and I remember thinking that there are betrayals you can cry through, and then there are betrayals that require you to become someone colder than your pain. Madison, I said carefully, I need you to tell me exactly what he asked you to sign. She sniffed, and her voice cracked when she answered. He said it was just paperwork for the realtor, she whispered. He said you already agreed, but because you were deployed, the county needed another signature sample. I closed my eyes. Ryan had always been good with explanations that sounded almost reasonable, especially when someone did not know enough to challenge them. That was how he got me at first. A truck repair, a late bill, a wedding deposit, a debit card problem. Small emergencies stacked one on top of another until the truth was buried under guilt. Did you sign anything? I asked. No, she said quickly. Not yet. I got scared. I believed her. Not because I trusted her, not yet, but because fear has a sound, and Madison sounded like someone who had just discovered the floor beneath her was fake. She told me Ryan had met her at a bar outside Raleigh 2 months before my deployment. Back then, he had said he was separated from a woman named Emily, a military ex-wife who had left him emotionally destroyed, and he made himself sound like the kind of wounded man a lonely woman might want to save. He said I was controlling. He said I kept the house in my name to punish him. He said the deployment had made me unstable. Worst of all, he told her that I knew about the baby, that I had agreed he should move on, and that we were only finishing paperwork because the military made everything complicated. Every sentence felt like being cut with something dull. Because it was not just that he lied about me. He built a whole version of me, a cruel version, a convenient version, a woman awful enough to justify anything he did next. Madison started crying harder. I thought you knew, she said. I swear to God, Emily, I thought you knew. I wanted to hate her. A part of me did hate her because she had slept in my bed, eaten in my kitchen, and watched my fiancé carry baby furniture into the house I had worked years to afford. But another part of me heard something familiar in her voice. The same confusion, the same shame, the same sick realization that Ryan did not love women as much as he loved access. Access to comfort, access to money, access to sympathy, access to whatever identity he needed that day. Listen to me, I said, forcing my voice steady. Do not sign anything. Do not confront him. Do not tell him you called me. Madison went quiet. Then she whispered, he's in the shower. My stomach tightened. Where are the documents now? In the office, she said. Your office, I guess. There's a folder on the desk. I looked toward the dark horizon beyond the base lights, and for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt a thin line of control return to my hands. Take pictures, I said. Every page, every envelope, every name, every date, every signature. She hesitated. If he catches me. Madison, I said softly, he is already using you. The silence after that was heavy. Then I heard movement, careful footsteps, a door opening slowly, and the faint creak of a chair. My body went rigid as I listened, helpless and alert, while a pregnant woman I had never met moved through my home in the middle of the night, trying to photograph the evidence my fiancé had stolen from my life. One picture came through, then another, then another. I opened the first one and felt my mouth go dry. It was a power of attorney form. Not the limited one I had signed before deployment, the one that allowed Ryan to handle small house repairs and wedding deposits if I lost communication. This was different. This one gave him control over banking, real estate, loans, insurance, and property transactions. My name was printed at the top. My signature sat at the bottom. And beside it was a notary stamp from a woman named Denise Caldwell. I did not know Denise Caldwell. I had never stood in front of her. I had never signed that document. Madison sent another photo, closer this time, and I stared at the signature until my vision blurred. It looked like mine. Not perfect, but close enough to frighten me. Then she sent the final page. My breath caught. Attached to the forged power of attorney was a photocopy of my military ID. My military ID. That was not something Ryan should have had. I kept it with me always. Even when I slept, it was within reach. For a moment, my mind refused to connect the pieces. Then I remembered the night before I deployed, when Ryan insisted on making copies of important emergency documents because he said couples needed to be organized before long separations. I had been packing gear. I had been exhausted. I had handed him a folder without watching closely. That was the first mistake. Not loving him. Not trusting him once. The mistake was giving someone access because I felt too tired to protect myself. Madison's next message appeared with no warning. He has a buyer. I stared at the screen. Then she sent a photo of a printed email from a real estate investor, offering cash for the house at a price so low it felt insulting. My house was worth far more. Ryan was not trying to sell it well. He was trying to sell it fast. Before I came home. Before the fraud alert stopped him. Before Madison asked too many questions. Before anyone saw what he had done. I sent everything to Lauren, my commander, and the email address Jag had given me. Then I called the county recorder's emergency fraud line and left a message so sharp my own voice startled me. This is Staff Sergeant Emily Carter. I am deployed overseas. Any deed, sale, transfer, or property document submitted in my name is fraudulent unless verified directly through my command and my attorney. I repeated my phone number twice. Then I called the realtor listed in the email. It went to voicemail. So I texted, "This is the legal owner of the property. Ryan Miller has no authority to sell my home. Police and legal counsel are being notified." For the first time all night, I felt something other than panic. I felt movement. Not safety, not victory, but movement. Then Madison gasped on the phone. A door slammed somewhere inside my house. Her breathing changed instantly. Fast. Terrified. "Madison," I whispered. No answer. Only footsteps. Heavy ones. Ryan's voice came through, low and furious, no charm left in it. Who are you talking to? The phone rustled, like she had tried to hide it. Then I heard Madison say, too quickly, nobody. A second later, Ryan spoke again, and this time his voice was close enough to make my skin crawl. Give me the phone. I heard her say no. Then I heard a sharp sound, not loud, but hard enough to make my whole body jolt. The call cut off. I stood there in the dust, shaking again, but this time it was not from helplessness. It was rage. I called Lauren with one sentence. Send your brother to my house now. Then my security camera alerted again. Front porch motion. I opened the live feed and saw Ryan dragging Madison by the wrist toward his truck, while she clutched her stomach with her free hand. And on the porch behind them, the cardboard box with my documents was gone. I watched Ryan drag Madison toward his truck, and for one unbearable second, my mind split in two. One part of me was still Staff Sergeant Emily Carter, trained to assess danger, stay on task, document what mattered, and move every piece of information toward the right people before emotion made the situation worse. The other part of me was just a woman, standing in the dirt on the other side of the world, watching the man she had planned to marry pull a pregnant woman across her own front yard. I could not reach them. I could not step between them. I could not put my hand on that truck door and say, not in my house, not with my documents, not with another woman you lied to. So I did the only thing I still could do. I recorded everything. My hands were shaking, but I kept the screen open, saved the camera feed, and sent it to Lauren, my commander, and every legal contact I had collected in the last few hours. Then I called 911 in my county from overseas. The dispatcher asked for my location, and for a moment the whole thing felt impossible, because I was calling from a combat zone about a domestic situation at my own house in North Carolina, while generators hummed behind me and the sky over the base sat black and empty. My name is Staff Sergeant Emily Carter, I said, forcing each word to come out clearly. I'm deployed overseas, and I'm watching a man remove a pregnant woman from my property against her will. The dispatcher's tone changed. Not dramatically, but enough. She asked if there were weapons in the house. My stomach dropped. Because yes, there were weapons in the house. Not unsecured, not careless, but locked in a safe in the closet, the way I had left them before deploying. Ryan knew about the safe. He knew where the key used to be. And even though I had moved it before I left, I suddenly hated myself for every detail I had ever trusted him with. I told the dispatcher everything I knew. The camera footage, the forged documents, the identity theft, the pregnant woman, the truck, the missing box, the attempted sale of my house. By the time I finished, my voice did not sound like crying anymore. It sounded flat, almost empty, like I had used up all the parts of myself that could afford to break. Lauren called while I was still on the line, so I let it go to voicemail. Then her brother texted, "Units are being sent. Stay on camera if you can. Stay on camera." That became my whole world. The porch light, the driveway, the truck. Ryan had Madison near the passenger door, but she was not getting in. Even through the grainy feed, I could see her pulling back, one hand on her stomach, the other gripping the edge of the open door like she was trying to anchor herself to anything that was not him. Ryan leaned close to her face. I could not hear him, but I knew that posture. I had seen it through a phone screen so many times when he lowered his voice and made cruelty sound private. Then he looked toward the house, toward the camera. For the first time, I think he realized I was watching live. He froze. Even from thousands of miles away, I saw the moment he understood that the story was no longer completely his to control. Then my phone rang. Ryan. I stared at his name on the screen, and all the grief I had been holding back rose into my throat like fire. I answered, but I did not speak. For 2 seconds, there was only his breathing. Then he said, very softly, "Emily, call them off." I looked at the camera feed. Madison was still by the truck. "You need to let her go," I said. His voice changed immediately. "She's pregnant with my child, and you're trying to destroy us because you're jealous." There it was again. The twist. The accusation. the attempt to make my reaction bigger than his crime. I almost answered from pain. I almost told him I had loved him, that I had sent him money with dust on my face and fear in my chest, that I had planned vows while he planned fraud, that I had believed every soft lie he put in my hands. But my commander's voice came back to me. Let the evidence speak. So I said only, the police are coming. He laughed once, but it had no confidence in it. You think they'll believe you from another country? I watched headlights appear at the end of my street. Not police lights yet. Just headlights. But Ryan saw them too. His head snapped toward the road, and Madison used that moment to pull away from him. She stumbled backward. One hand braced against the side of the truck, and I stopped breathing again because she looked unsteady, scared, too close to falling. Then blue lights washed across my front yard. For the first time in hours, the sight of my own porch did not make me feel helpless. 2 patrol cars pulled up fast, angled hard into the driveway, and Ryan stepped away from Madison with both hands slightly raised, already performing innocence before anyone had even asked him a question. I could not hear the officers through the security camera, but I saw Madison point to the house, then to the truck, then to herself. One officer guided her away, slowly, carefully, while the other kept Ryan near the driveway. Ryan kept talking. Of course, he kept talking. His hands moved, his face shifted. His whole body leaned into the performance of a misunderstood man surrounded by unreasonable women. But this time, Madison was not silent. Lauren arrived 10 minutes later, her car stopping crooked near the curb, and when she stepped out, I almost cried from the simple relief of seeing someone who was truly on my side standing in front of my home. She did not go near Ryan. She went straight to the officers, held up her phone, and showed them every clip I had sent her. The crib, the documents, the box, Madison's call, Ryan dragging her, the forged forms, the power of attorney, the emails, everything. And slowly, even without audio, I watched Ryan's confidence begin to crack. First his shoulders tightened, then his mouth stopped moving. Then he looked toward the house, toward the office, toward wherever he had hidden the box, and I knew he was doing the same math I had done hours earlier. The evidence had moved faster than he expected. My phone buzzed with a message from Madison. I'm safe with the officer. I told them everything. I closed my eyes. For the first time that night, a breath actually reached my lungs. Then another message came in. This one was from the realtor. Emily, I'm so sorry. Ryan told us you approved the sale. He sent a notarized authorization and scheduled a walkthrough for 9 a.m. today. I opened my eyes. A walkthrough. People were coming to my house in a few hours. Buyers. Maybe an investor. Maybe someone ready to move fast, wire money, and help Ryan erase me from my own life before I could even get on a plane. I forwarded the message to everyone. Then I watched an officer walk Ryan toward the patrol car. He was not handcuffed at first. He was still talking, still shaking his head, still trying to look offended instead of caught. But when the second officer came out of my house carrying the cardboard box from my office, Ryan stopped moving. Even on the camera, I saw his face change. Not fear exactly. Calculation. Like he was already deciding which lie came next. A few minutes later, Lauren called me on video. Her face was pale, and she was standing in my hallway, the hallway where my photos had been taken down and stacked against the wall like I had already been removed from my own story. Emily, she said, and her voice was too careful. What? She turned the camera toward my office desk. There were papers everywhere. Copies of my signature, mortgage statements, bank printouts, a notary stamp pad, and beside my laptop, there was a printed itinerary. Not mine, Ryan's. A flight confirmation for the next morning. One way, Raleigh to Las Vegas. 2 passengers, Ryan Miller and Madison Blake. I stared at the screen, confused for half a second. Then Lauren moved the camera closer, and I saw what was written in Ryan's handwriting across the top of the folder. After closing, disappear. After closing, disappear. Those 3 words sat on the folder like a confession Ryan had written only for himself, and somehow, seeing his handwriting made it worse than any message, Any lie, any camera clip, because it proved he was not confused, not overwhelmed, not trapped by a hard situation. He had a plan. He had looked at my house, my savings, my deployment, my trust, my love, and turned all of it into an escape route. For a moment, I forgot where I was. I forgot the base, the dust, the concrete barriers, the distant sound of vehicles moving in the dark. All I could see was that folder on my desk, under the lamp I had bought at Target, beside the laptop where I used to look at wedding venues and save photos of simple white dresses I could maybe afford after deployment. Ryan had been planning to sell my house, take the money, fly to Las Vegas, and vanish with Madison before I even understood what had happened. And the sickest part was, Madison did not even know she was part of it. Lauren's voice came through the phone, soft and careful. "Emily, there's more." I gripped the phone tighter. "What else?" She moved the camera toward the floor, where one of the officers had opened a black duffel bag beside my desk. Inside were envelopes of cash, my spare checkbooks, two of my grandmother's bracelets, and a stack of cards with names I did not recognize. At first, I thought they were business cards. Then Lauren zoomed in. They were credit cards. Not all mine. Some had Madison's name. Some had my name. One had my mother's name. My mother, who was 71, who still mailed me handwritten letters because she said emails felt too cold, who had trusted Ryan because I trusted him. I felt something inside me tear loose. Not loudly. Not with sobbing. Just a quiet, final tearing, like the last rope holding the old version of my life had snapped. "Is my mom okay?" I asked. Lauren nodded quickly. "She's fine. I already called her. She's scared, but she's fine." Scared. My mother was scared because the man I brought into our family had not stopped at me. He had reached for anyone close enough to exploit. I thought about every Thanksgiving dinner where Ryan helped her carry dishes, every Sunday afternoon where he fixed her porch light, every time she said, "He seems like such a good man, honey," and I felt a kind of shame that did not belong to me, but still pressed hard against my ribs. Then Lauren turned the camera again. Ryan was outside by the patrol car now. This time, his hands were behind his back. Handcuffed. I should have felt relief. Part of me did. But another part of me felt a strange, hollow grief, because the man being placed in that patrol car still had the same shoulders I had leaned on at the airport, the same mouth that had promised to wait, the same hands that once held mine while we picked out a wedding date. That is one thing nobody tells you about betrayal. The truth can arrive all at once, but your heart does not update that quickly. Your mind sees the criminal. Your memory still sees the fiancé. And for a little while, both of them stand in the same body. Madison was sitting on the edge of an ambulance when Lauren walked outside with the phone. She looked smaller than I expected. Younger, too, maybe 29 or 30, wrapped in a blanket, one hand resting on her stomach while a paramedic checked her blood pressure. When she saw Lauren's phone, she looked directly into the camera. Her eyes were swollen from crying. "I'm sorry," she said. I did not know what to do with that apology. It was too small for the damage, but too human to reject completely. So I nodded, even though she probably could not see the movement clearly. "Just tell the truth," I said. "That's all I need from you." She broke down then, covering her face with one hand, and for the first time, I realized Ryan had left wreckage in both directions. He had taken my money, my house, my safety, my ability to trust my own judgment. But he had also taken a pregnant woman's fear and loneliness and used it like currency. Madison told the officers everything. She told them about the fake story, the forged forms, the realtor, the signatures he wanted her to practice, the flight to Las Vegas, and the way he kept saying that once the house closed, Emily would not be able to do anything from overseas. That sentence followed me for days. Emily would not be able to do anything. He had counted on my distance. He had counted on my silence. He had counted on my training to endure discomfort without complaint. And maybe, for 3 months, that had worked. But he forgot one thing. Endurance is not the same as weakness. By morning, JAG was involved. My bank had escalated the fraud reports. The county had flagged my property. and the realtor had canceled the walkthrough after receiving proof that Ryan had no legal authority to sell anything. The forged power of attorney was placed under investigation. The loan application was frozen. My mother's credit was locked. My accounts were secured. And Ryan, the man who once told me I was too guarded, had finally discovered what guarded really looked like. Still, securing the documents did not secure my heart. That part was slower, messier, more humiliating. Because when daylight came over the base, I had to put my phone away, wash my face in a metal sink, pull on my uniform, and go to work like my entire future had not been dragged into a patrol car during the night. Nobody around me knew what to say. A few people tried. My commander checked on me twice. One of the younger soldiers left a protein bar on my cot without a word. And that small kindness almost made me cry harder than the betrayal, because it reminded me that real care does not always arrive with dramatic promises. Sometimes it arrives quietly, without asking for access to your bank account. That afternoon, Ryan called from the county jail. I should not have answered. I know that now. But at the time, some wounded part of me still wanted to hear him admit it. I wanted one clean sentence. One honest apology. One moment where he stopped performing and understood what he had destroyed. His voice came through tired, rough, and angry under the fake softness. Emily, this has gone way too far. I almost laughed again. He said it like I had inconvenienced him. Like his arrest was a misunderstanding created by my overreaction. You tried to sell my house, I said. He breathed out hard. I was trying to fix things. For who? Silence. For who, Ryan? He did not answer that. Instead, he lowered his voice. You know I still love you. There it was. The final tool. Not money. Not guilt. Not fear. Love. Or the word love, at least, emptied out and sharpened into something he could still use. I looked across the base, at the pale sky, the dust lifting near the road, the soldiers moving through another dangerous day, and I suddenly felt older than 36. Not broken. Older. Clearer. I love someone who never existed, I said. He went quiet. Then his voice changed. Cold again. You'll regret making me your enemy. And just like that, the last small thread of grief inside me hardened into certainty. I ended the call. I blocked the jail number. Then I called Lauren and told her to change the locks, replace the security system, remove every trace of him from my house, and box up anything that belonged to him for the police to handle. By the end of the week, I had filed every report they told me to file. Identity theft, fraud, forgery, domestic intimidation, attempted property fraud, unauthorized financial access. The words sounded official, almost clean, but nothing about living through them felt clean. Every report reopened the wound. Every signature reminded me how easily trust becomes evidence when the wrong person touches it. Then, on the 7th day after Ryan's arrest, Madison sent me one final message. I found something hidden in the nursery closet. I think you need to see it. A photo followed. At first, I did not understand what I was looking at. It was a small velvet ring box. The same ring box Ryan had used when he proposed to me. But inside it was not my engagement ring. Inside was another diamond ring, smaller than mine, resting on a folded receipt. And on the receipt, written in Ryan's handwriting, were 4 words that made my blood go cold all over again. Proposal after house closes. Proposal after house closes. I read those 4 words so many times that they stopped looking like English. The ring box sat in Madison's shaking hand, tucked inside the nursery closet he had built in my house, beside diapers paid for with my money, beneath a shelf where he had already removed my old army photos. That was the part that finally made me understand him. Ryan had not been torn between 2 women. He had not been overwhelmed. He had not been confused by love, fear, pregnancy, money, or distance. He had simply needed one woman to fund the escape and another woman to help him start over after the theft was complete. And somehow, in his mind, both of us were replaceable. I asked Madison to give the ring box to the officers. Not because I cared about the ring. Not because I needed one more piece of proof. But because I wanted the truth preserved exactly as it was. Ugly, selfish, and written in his own handwriting. For the next several weeks, I lived in two worlds. By day, I was still Staff Sergeant Carter, moving through deployment with my uniform pressed, my voice steady, and my face trained not to show the private war happening behind my eyes. By night, I became a woman rebuilding her life through phone calls, scanned documents, police reports, fraud affidavits, legal appointments, and quiet breakdowns no one saw unless they happened to pass my cot at the wrong time. The house was saved. That should have felt like victory. But it did not feel like victory at first. It felt like returning to the scene of a crime I had survived from overseas. Lauren changed every lock, replaced the cameras, packed Ryan's things into boxes for investigators, and sent me pictures of each room after she cleaned what she could. Still, even through a screen, I could see what he had done. My photos were missing from the hallway. My desk drawers had been emptied. My bedroom looked rearranged by someone who had never loved me, only studied where I kept useful things. The nursery was the hardest. Lauren asked if I wanted her to dismantle it before I came home. I said yes. Then I sat outside the tent for 20 minutes afterward, staring at the dirt, because saying yes hurt in a way I did not expect. Not because I wanted that nursery. I did not. It hurt because Ryan had turned even the idea of a baby into evidence. Madison kept cooperating. She gave statements, handed over messages, turned in documents, and confirmed that Ryan had pressured her to copy my signature. Her baby was born 2 weeks before I came home. A little girl. She sent me one photo from the hospital, not of the baby's face, just one tiny hand wrapped around her finger. Under it, she wrote, "I'm going to do better than this." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I wrote back, "So am I." When my deployment finally ended, I thought I would feel relief stepping onto American soil. Instead, I felt nervous. That surprised me. I had spent months wanting to come home, but home no longer felt like a safe place waiting for me. It felt like a question. Lauren picked me up from the airport, and she cried before I did. My mother was with her, holding a cardboard sign that said, "Welcome home, Emmy," written in her careful handwriting, with a small American flag taped to one corner. I hugged her so hard she laughed and cried at the same time. For a few minutes, I let myself be someone's daughter again. Not a soldier, not a victim, not a witness in a fraud case. Just her daughter, tired and alive. When we pulled into my driveway, I froze. The porch light was on. The same porch light from every camera clip. The same light that had shown me the crib box, the pregnant woman, the documents, the lie. I sat in Lauren's car with my hands in my lap, unable to open the door. My mother reached back from the front seat and covered my hand with hers. "You don't have to be brave every second," she said. That was the first time I cried in front of them. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly with my forehead against the window, while the house I had fought to keep sat waiting 10 feet away. Inside, it smelled different. Bleach, new locks, fresh paint in the hallway. Lauren had put my photos back up. My mother's lemon tree was still standing in the backyard. My coffee mug was back beside the sink. Small things. Ordinary things. But after everything Ryan had tried to take, ordinary felt almost sacred. The legal process did not end quickly. People like Ryan leave knots everywhere. Banks, courts, credit bureaus, county offices, insurance files, police statements, old passwords, new fears. He tried to deny everything. Then he tried to blame Madison. Then he tried to say I had agreed to the sale during a video call that conveniently had no recording. But the documents, the messages, the camera footage, the realtor emails, the forged power of attorney, and the handwritten note made his story smaller every time he told it. Months later, he took a plea deal. I will not pretend that fixed me. It did not. No sentence can return the version of yourself you were before someone taught you how dangerous trust can become in the wrong hands. But it gave me space. And space, I learned, is where healing starts. I canceled the wedding. I sold the dress. I closed the joint plans we had made in my head. Then one Saturday morning, I took off my engagement ring, placed it in the same drawer where I kept my deployment patches, and shut it without crying. That felt like progress. Not dramatic progress. Real progress. The kind nobody applauds because it happens alone in your bedroom, while sunlight touches the floor and your heart finally stops begging for an explanation from someone who benefited from your confusion. I still serve. I still love hard. But I do not hand people keys to my life just because they know how to sound wounded. I learned to check documents. I learned to protect my accounts. I learned that guilt is not proof of love and pressure is not partnership. And sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet, I still see that security clip in my mind. Ryan under the porch light, a crib box in his arms. A lie so bold it almost became my future. But then I remember something else. I remember that I saw it. I questioned it. I froze the accounts. I called for help. I saved myself from the other side of the world. And maybe that is the part one hold on to now. Not that I was betrayed, but that I finally stopped explaining away the danger and started believing what the truth was trying to show me.